Join me as I dive into the world of Marvel Legends and challenge myself to find the worst action figures ever made. If you collect Marvel Legends action figures, you've come across a few stinkers. It's inevitable. There's a lot of good, but there's always some bad to go along with it, guys. Who among us can forget that very first wave of Hasbro Marvel Legends? Whoo, boy, there were some bad ones in that wave. That Emma Frost action figure, though? Yikes. Marvel Legends is one of the longest lasting and most popular toy lines ever made, and over the course of a 20-year history, it's no great surprise that there's some bad ones. They can't all be winners, right? And believe me, they aren't. When we look at what makes a bad Marvel Legends action figure, we could be talking about a poor sculpt, we could be talking about really outdated looks, we could be talking about bad paint apps, bad engineering, bad articulation. It could mean a lot of things. It could mean all those even. The gist of it though is that the action figure has to be so poor that it torpedoes the Marvel Legends experience. If you look at it and on reflex say, wow, this is bad, then we're on the right track. With that, guys, let's look at the worst Marvel Legends action figures ever. Number 5 is Sue Storm from the Fantastic Four Retro Card series. And God, Invisible Woman overall is okay up until you get to the head sculpt. And oh boy, I don't know what's going on with the grimace there, but it's a definite downgrade from the head sculpts that you got with Invisible Woman action figures prior. What prompted them to put this head on her is inexplicable, especially when they already had a head that was perfectly fine. But you add this to a body that's already looking a little dated, and it combines to make an experience that's very underwhelming. Even the hair is messed up. I don't know how you do that. That's really impressive. This does not suit her face at all. Something a little shorter would have looked much nicer, I think. I'll be honest with you guys, it was between this one and Reed Richards with salad fingers, but I felt like the bad head sculpt had to win out on this one. Just really not the best Invisible Woman experience. If you got the Walgreens action figure, you're going to have a lot better time with it. The 4th worst Marvel Legends action figure of all time is the Hood from the Zemnu wave of Marvel Legends. You wouldn't think that this one is so bad just by looking at him, but boy, let me tell you that this action figure doesn't balance at all. That cape is so heavy that you try to put it on him and he just falls right over. What were they thinking putting such a heavy cape on such a relatively light action figure? Not to mention, the cape doesn't even stay on him all that well. It kind of just hooks onto his shoulders, and there it is. It's not very exciting. If that wasn't enough, he's got one of the weirdest head sculpts you'll ever see. He's screaming, it looks goofy, it looks like he's filing a complaint with management. Don't get me wrong, he's pretty fun outside of the cape, but with the cape, oh god, what a miserable action figure. If you support what I do, please click subscribe and hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss a single video of mine when it comes out. And if you're enjoying this video about the worst Marvel Legends ever, please give us a like, guys, because these are tough to put together, and I really appreciate it. The 3rd worst Marvel Legends action figure of all time, guys, is the Hobgoblin from the Spider-Man Retro line. Oh, what a terrible release this was. It had Bucky cap legs. It had legs that didn't even fit right on the Goblin Glider because the Goblin Glider was at an angle. The feet didn't have pointed shoes, so his feet didn't hook right on there. He looked really, really awkward on that glider. He had to bend his knees so that they were angled all outside and everything. It was such a lousy release. The rationale surrounding this one was that they eliminated the chainmail effect on the arms and legs to make it look more like the cartoon, but really it didn't look anything like the cartoon at all. It was just another cheap cash-in trying to capitalize on the popularity of Spider-Man the Animated Series. It's one of those action figures that banks on a bunch of gullible fanboys with poor memories who can't remember anything about what the show was like. The best way to describe it is it coasts by on vibes. I can't imagine how a fan of Spider-Man the Animated Series could look at Hobgoblin and say this is okay, because if you know the show at all, you would be appalled by this action figure. The only people I can see buying this one are casuals who don't know any better. The second worst Marvel Legend of all time is Cyclops from the Colossus Build-A-Wave of Age of Apocalypse action figures. This one is pretty bad because it's literally just Bucky Cap with a few extra parts. They did this action figure in the laziest way possible. It barely captures any of what makes Age of Apocalypse Cyclops who he is. The body doesn't look right, the upper body looks way too thin, his boots don't even look right. They don't even really look like boots, they just look like part of his leg. And if you've even bothered to look at Age of Apocalypse artwork, you know that they're a pretty distinctive part of the costume. The only saving grace of this one is the head sculpt and a few bits and pieces of armor that make him look a little bit better, but overall, it's a pretty terrible looking, gummy looking action figure. Cool. And finally, the number one worst Marvel Legends action figure of all time, guys, is Cannonball. Is anyone really surprised by this one? God, he doesn't have any legs, dude. Sure, they eventually released a version of Cannonball that did come with a pair of legs, but the initial Cannonball did not have any legs. All he had was the blast effect on the bottom, and that was the action figure. It was horrendous. At the very least, they should have included legs with him in the package, just so that it was complete, but it definitely wasn't. This blast effect that the upper body rests on is just goofy looking. There's barely anything there. He's barely rising off the ground. And I know that it has to be that way to get him in the package, but wow, it looks awful. He just stares at you on his little blast base from the package, awesome in his badness. And you really have to wonder how many people begrudgingly dumped $20 on this action figure. I can't imagine a lot of people were too happy to do it. They probably did it just to complete the Build-A-Figure. You know, like people do most of the time when they complete a Build-A-Figure wave. There's always one, and boy, Cannonball was the one. So bad that he wasn't even a whole action figure. Well, soulmates, those are my stinkers. A bad Marvel Legend can go through just about any criteria you can imagine. It can have bad articulation, bad sculpting, bad paint, bad engineering. As long as you look at it and say to yourself, wow, that's bad, you know you got yourself a real live one on your hands. So soulmates, which do you think are the worst Marvel Legends of all time? Let me know what ones you hate down in the comments. What are your most hated Marvel Legends, guys? I would love to hear all about them, because we've all run into some stinkers, guys. It's inevitable. They can't all be good. Thanks for watching, soulmates. I appreciate you spending your time with me, and I hope to see you here again soon. I'll catch you again next time, guys. Check out my other videos in the meantime, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye, everybody.